Hello and welcome to English 1301. We are in week 6, module 4. We are moving on to the fourth and final essay. So let's get started. All right, so in module 4, we have a lot going on this week. We are working on an argument essay. So, as such, there is quite a bit going on with that. An argument essay, you've basically written an argument for every essay that you have been writing because all essays are arguments of one sort or another. This one is a straight up argument essay. So if we take a look at the basic features of the argument essay, they are really, really short. So you're going to choose your argument, which we'll go into when we look at the assignment. You're going to have a strong stance. You have to have one side or another. You have to argue yes or no. You cannot have an in the middle stance. Kind of like with the evaluation essay, you have to choose one side or the other. And that's going to be the basis of your thesis statement, which will go, of course, at the end of your introduction. Then you're going to have the body of your work, which is going to support your stance with 3 points of evidence to support that. And this, unlike the other ones, is going to be something of a research essay. You're going to need to go out and find good uh, sources for this one. And you're going to include a counter argument to your argument with a rebuttal. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. And then finally, of course, you'll have your conclusion and restate your stance slash thesis and finish strong. So those are the basic features of an argument essay. Got a video here. Let me see how this works. Ah, yes, there's another Schmoot video. It's a really more simplistic argument essay video. It's really short. You guys can watch that on your own if you'd like to. But there are so many, well, let me see. Let me look at this website. There's so many great videos out there on how to write an argument essay. The key things that you need to make sure that you include are your argument, which is your thesis, your 3 points of evidence that argue for your thesis, and then again, a counter argument or and a rebuttal, a counter argument and a rebuttal. Now, what the counter argument does is right here, where it says presents both sides of the controversy. So a counter argument is just that. It is the opposite side of your argument. So if you are arguing for something, the counter argument is going to be whatever the argument is against that. Now, when you present a counter argument, and you should in an argument paper, uh, you're going to present it with an open mind. You should not present it in any kind of sneering way or derogatory way, despite the fact that it is the opposite of your argument. In fact, it gives you more credibility as a writer if you present it with clarity and with open mindedness and um, in a maybe even in a positive not a positive light, not so much a positive light that it overtakes your argument, but you do want to acknowledge that there is another side to your argument. You never want to write an argument paper and say, my side's the only side and that's just that, because that's not realistic. Because you wouldn't have an argument if your side was the only side. If your side was the only side, then it would be fact and you'd have no argument. But the fact that you have an argument, that it is debatable, is the important part here. So you acknowledge that there is another side to the story, and you can even say that sometimes they have merit because sometimes the other side does have merit in an argument. What you're tasked with doing is saying, yes, there's another side to this argument. There are some valid points, but my side is more correct because of X, X, and X. Whatever reasons you've given for your evidence, you're going to point back to that and say, yes, there is another side to the story, but my side is more valid because of X. So that's called the rebuttal. So the counter argument is acknowledging that there is another side to the story, whatever side that is. The rebuttal is saying, yes, that's all fine and good that they believe this, but they're wrong because of X, or I'm more correct because of X, right? Whatever your argument for your your argument is. So there you go. But it is important to acknowledge the other side of the controversy. You never want to start out saying that your side is the only side because that just turns people off. People like options. So remember that. And remember, your audience is really important when you're writing an argument paper because generally speaking, it's a persuasive type of paper. You're trying to convince your audience that you are correct and that they should agree with you. Or or in some cases, just that you have valid points. So there you go. But this is a pretty good website. It's just tips on an argumentative essay. Again, there's so much out there in the world about how to write an argument essay. I could not actually include all of them here. Try to think if we have any recommended reading for this week. No, apparently we do not. So we have a lot to do anyway. So, like I said, anything that you can find on argument essays, and honestly, this should not be new to you. If you'd like more resources on it, I can help you with that. But there is so much out there, and I will probably, well, we do have chapter 48 in our book, chapter 15 and chapter 48. So there you go for our textbooks, which is why there's probably not any recommended reading. All right, but let's get into the assignments for this week. So, chapter 15 is the key to writing, key features in a guide to writing arguments. So, there you go. You'll find some good information in that. It's fairly short, less than 10 pages. And if you've been keeping up with our text, it's fairly short. So, there's those questions and comments. And then chapter 48 is finding sources. Again, like I said, this is going to be something of a research assignment. You're going to have a research component to it. You're going to want to find outside sources. You're going to be required to have an academic source. This chapter will help you with finding good sources. And I'm going to show you some other things as well. Now, so what we are doing is an argument essay over. Let's just go to the instructions for the essay first. It's going to be an argument essay discussing an issue within the big umbrella topic of social media. So, what that means is you need to find a topic that you find interesting or that you are passionate about under the giant umbrella topic of social media. I'm giving you guys a lot of leeway here to talk about something that you find interesting. Okay. And it can be anything as long as it's related to social media. So, some of the examples that I have here are like, is social media bad for socialization? Does social media make us less friendly? Is social media the best thing to happen to communication? Some people would argue it is. So, you're going to develop your essay using the basic features of an argument, an introduction with your thesis statement that is an actual stance, one side or the other. The body of your essay should include uh, your different pieces of evidence that support your argument. You should have a counter argument and a rebuttal to that counter argument that leads back to your original argument. And then, of course, your conclusion. So, we've got some articles that you're going to be reading on social media. And as one of the assignments is doing summaries on those articles, just like we did for the parenting method articles. And then you're going to use at least one of those articles as a reference for your essay. Now, it can be that you just reference the article. You don't have to write your essay on that article. You're just going to reference that article, but you do have to have it as a required resource. And you're going to be required to have an academic source, a scholarly academic source, which should come from the database of journals from the library, or it can be a book or an ebook. It could also come from Google Scholar, but it must be an academic source and not a popular media source. And the difference between the two is that a popular media source is literally any media source, usually that you can find on the internet that you can get to for free, or if there's a paywall. For example, Wall Street Journal has a paywall, The Atlantic has a paywall, New York Times. A lot of these publications have paywalls, but they still have advertisements. So any source that has advertisements is considered a popular media source. And you can have as many popular media sources as you want after you have the one required scholarly media source, the scholarly article. So let me repeat that. You can have as many popular media sources as you want or require as long as you have one scholarly source and you're referencing back to one of the articles that we're going to read. And I will show you guys how to get to the library resources so that you can possibly find one here in just a minute. But this is the assignment. Again, 750 words, um, all the same criteria that we had for the last three. And it's, of course, an MLA format, just like the rest of them. Now, there will be uh, additional 20 points taken off if any of the following are missing. First of all, MLA formatting. By now, we should know that MLA formatting is absolutely required. You must have a correct works cited page, not just a page, it needs to be correct. And the two required sources for this particular essay, one of the articles that we are reading, and a scholarly source. If you use two of the articles, that's fine, but that does not count for both of your required sources. Only one of those articles is going to count for that required source. So you do need to have one article that we're going to read and one additional scholarly source. After those two sources are met, you can have as many other sources as you deem necessary for your paper. All right, so let's take a look at the rest of the assignments because there are some interesting ones coming up. Well, actually, you know what? Let's go look at the library first. So under writing resources, we should have, there's the College Success Center. We should have a link to the library here, but we don't. But I will put one up. In any case, we'll just go take a look at the library. And see what we can find here. All right. So here's the link to the library, which I will put in there. So this is the main link for all of the libraries at all four of the main campuses at San Jacinto. And if you look here, there is a chat. Now, currently it's offline because the library is not open. But when the library is open, and here are the hours for the library, Central Campus is open from 1 to 5, so they're about to close. It's probably why the chat is not available at this time. Generation Park is closed on Sundays, and then everything else is closed. So only Central Campus is open from 1 to 5. Actually, they're about to open. That's why the chat's offline. But these are the hours for all of the campuses. But whenever the campuses are open, this chat will be available and you can literally chat with a librarian if you're having a hard time finding resources. I highly recommend this chat that is available when they are open, which will probably be in just a few minutes. Um, the librarians are there and waiting to help you. They literally went to school to help do research, and they are really fantastic about helping. If you don't know where to start, they'll ask you what the assignment is, they'll take a look at it, they will break it down for you if you need to. Um, they'll ask you what your thesis is, and they'll help you. They're really incredible at it. I highly recommend it when it's available. But you can also take a look when they're not available. You can try to do some of the research on your own, and it's further down here on the page. It's called the Sanjag Super Search. And here you can put in anything and search. And this will search everything. You can tell it to search everything. You can also tell it just to search books. You can tell it just to search the databases for articles, or you can just search for ebooks, whichever of these you would like. Now, if you're not anywhere near campus, searching for books would probably be a little frustrating because if you're not able to come to campus and pick that book up, it's not going to do you much good. So my suggestion would be to try to look for articles and ebooks. I don't really like to separate them out. If I'm honest, most of the things that when I found things, it's either been articles or ebooks, and it will tell you what it is. So for our purposes, let's just put in a sample. We're going to say social media and teenagers because I want to look at something. Of course you have to log in. Totally forgot about this part. It's been so long. Well, of course it's unable to log me in. I think there's a new way for logging in. So this would be a great point where you would want to talk to an actual librarian. It's been a minute since I've logged in on this computer. I usually log in from school. But you put in the what you want to look for, you hit search, it's going to come up with all kinds of different examples of what you need to do. Now, again, probably if you're having a hard time logging in, which I I would have to look for the new login information, you want to try to chat with the librarian and they can help you log in or they can help you find it themselves. Now, there are some great features about using this. There's certain citation uh, information that are on these articles that you can have it write your citation for you for your works cited. But again, a lot of great information at the library. You can also use Google Scholar, which we'll take a look at right now. Google Scholar is good because kind of acts, it gives you a lot of some of the same articles that you can get online at the library, but this is going to weed out more of your popular sources. So let's put this in again, social media, teenagers, mental health. Let's do mental health. I like that. All right, so when you push this in, it's put this in, it's coming up with about 4 million results. And it's the very first one is an article about investigating the role of social media on mental health. There's lots and lots. So what you can do is click on them. Now you may not be able to get to that, but I think the whole point of social media is, or a scholar, is that there you go. You can get to it. So here you go. And it's going to bring up a PDF of this particular uh, article, which you could use as a source. But the problem is you're going to have to make sure that you get the citation for this correct for your works cited page. Now, there's a couple of different things you can do. Sometimes they will give you the citation on the PDF. Usually, all of this information right here is the important information, but you have to put it in the correct order for a works cited for MLA. This is where online works cited or bibliographic citation things can help. And that is perfectly acceptable. Uh, that's a perfectly acceptable use for those online work bibs kind of things because I can't even think of what some of them are, but certainly you could Google it. That is not something I'm ever going to ding you for because knowing how to do citations is important and you will still be held accountable if it's not in the correct format, so you're going to have to double check it. But it's hard and it changes all the time. So it's one of those things that's completely understandable if you were to have something do that for you. But there you go. So that's Google Scholar. And it's important to use Google Scholar because it will, like I said, weed out the popular media articles for the most part. Looks to me like most of these articles are coming from actual journals. So journals are peer reviewed and edited, as are ebooks and actual books, so that the information in there is at least agreed on by several professionals before it's actually published. So there you go. But that's what you're going to need to look for in terms of resources. And like I said, you only need really one academic resource, and I will put the link to the library in here. But going back, now that I've confused absolutely everybody, this week we've got several assignments. Chapters 15 and 48 are going to help you with writing the actual final paper. Uh, but we have some other assignments that are also important. Now, here is the social media article summaries assignment. This is where you're going to write summaries of the articles that we're going to be reading for this. And there's going to be 4 articles about different aspects of social media. You need to make sure you include key points as well as the title of the article and the author. They don't need to be more than a paragraph long. They're not super deep. It's just making sure that you've read the articles and you can summarize them so you know what's in them. Those articles are here in the main part of our Blackboard under social media articles. And I'm going to make them visible to you guys right now so that you can see them. And these are the 4 that I have selected for us to look at. The first one is nobody has any real friends anymore. Now, some of these articles may seem older. They are older, and that's okay. I think they're still relevant. And this one is about how social media has possibly taken away our idea of what real friends are. Now, I don't necessarily think that's true, but it's up to you to read the article and see what you think, but also to summarize it. The second one is why millennials will learn nothing from Facebook's privacy crisis. Again, a little bit older, but I think it touches on the fact that there is a privacy crisis in social media. On the one hand, we nobody wants to be doxxed. Everybody wants to remain private, but on the other hand, we have our information being sold whether we like it or not based on the social media that we use. So, this is an article about how specifically millennials haven't learned from it, that they're still trucking right along with everything. Again, you don't have to agree with the article. You just need to read and summarize it, and you don't even have to use it if it doesn't pertain to the topic that you want to talk about. The next article is how fake accounts constantly manipulate what you see on social media. This is actually a really good article that is still relevant about sock puppet accounts and, you know, trolls basically, fake bot accounts and how they work and how they are actually influencing what we see. So, again, pretty good article. I think it's relevant. It could be relevant. And then finally, the last one is about China's social credit system. And do make sure that you realize there are 4 articles here. So, this last article is actually literally all about the social credit system that is currently in place in China. And we are sort of tacitly putting in place here in America with certain aspects of this and why it's what is good and what is bad about it and what it can do. And if you go all the way down here to the very end, there is actually, if you click on this, it will take you to the link where you can watch this video about how they actually will tell you that your behavior is being recorded and it's being logged into the individual credit information system. So, again, another article, agree with it or not, you just need to write a summary about it. And if these articles, any of them, hit on any of the part of the argument that you are wanting to make for or against something under social media, by all means, reference one of these articles because these are the four articles. You need to pick one of them to reference. And you can reference it in any way that you wish. You can reference it in that it agrees with you or that it disagrees with you or that you agree with it or you disagree with it. Whatever your topic is. If you want to talk about, cyberbullying in some form or fashion, you can do that. If you want to talk about the effects of children and social media, you can. If it's positive, negative, whichever. If you want to talk about general society or some more specific, narrowed, focused topic within social media, you can. It's literally up to you. But you do need to start thinking about it and you need to reference one of these articles, as well as a social as well as a scholarly article or book or ebook. So that's where the articles live. And here under the assignments, there's the summaries. So that's one, two, three of the assignments for this week. The last one is a little bit more, well, it's a little more entangled. So we all have to do at least one teamwork assignment with every course at Sanjak. Whether or not you've done an assignment in other courses is beyond my control, but I did look this up. I did ensure that this was in fact the case, and we do have to do a teamwork assignment. As much as I don't really care for them myself, I tried to make it as easy as possible for everyone else. So here we go. We're doing a logical fallacies teamwork assignment. Now, logical fallacies are something that would normally go over in an assignment. I've turned it into a teamwork assignment because I felt like it would be a little bit better that way. Logical fallacies are things that you want to avoid in your argumentative writing. So, what we are doing is we're going to identify logical fallacies in a scene from the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And this particular scene is called Monty Python and the Witch Trial. It's one of the vignette type scenes that's in the whole movie where uh, it shows a progression of logical fallacies that are kind of ridiculous because that's what a logical fallacy is. It is something that sounds logical but is false because of how it works. So, you're going to analyze logical fallacies using the famous witch trial scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and exaggerates faulty reasoning in a humorous way and makes it an ideal example for learning how logical fallacies work and why they're ineffective. In other words, if you can identify logical fallacies, you can avoid them in your own arguments and you can recognize them in other people's arguments, and therefore it would be easier for you to argue against their argument because you've recognized the logical fallacy. So, your group has been pre-assigned. This was a random assignment by the computer. So, you're going to be grouped into different, well, I think I can't remember exactly how many groups it was when I did it, but you'll be in a group with other people, and the first step is to try and contact your group. But let's go over the assignment still. You're going to watch the scene, which is the scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and it's about 4 minutes long, a little bit older than that, and shouldn't be an issue. So you're going to watch the whole scene, and you might want to watch it a couple times to make sure you understand what's going on. Um, and then you're going to, as a group, you're going to have to analyze 5 different logical fallacies, which means each individual student selects one fallacy and no fallacy may be repeated within the group. And your group is responsible for coordinating those choices. So you're going to have to work with your group and decide who wants to do which one. And you can choose 5 from the following list. Now, I believe you've been set up in groups of 5. If you don't have 5 people in your group, then just choose one per person. And if someone in your group is not responding, then just worry about the people who are responding because that's all you can do. So that being said, each student is going to choose one of the following logical fallacies, either false analogy, circular reasoning, hasty generalization, non sequitur, appeal to authority, bandwagon, or false cause post hoc. And you're going to find where in the witch trial scene that particular logical fallacy takes place. So each individual student is going to be responsible for creating a slide that has the name of the logical fallacy with a definition of it in your own words and the example from the scene. So you can either quote or briefly describe the moment in the scene that that logical fallacy occurs and then why the reasoning is flawed. And you need to have some sort of visual element to the slide. Either it can be a screenshot from the video or an image or an icon or a diagram. Um, but basically, you're going to find your logical fallacy in the video, make a slide about it, what it is, and why it's a logical fallacy. And each slide should be understandable on its own, even if somebody hasn't seen the movie clip. You don't have to have watched the movie to be able to make the slide. So you're going to need to have one group coordinator who is able to assemble all 5 of the slides, or however many there are, 3, 4, into one complete presentation. So if you have somebody who maybe has access to Canva and can share that with the rest of the group, and then everybody can work on their own slide at one time. I believe you can also do the same thing in PowerPoint and definitely in Google Slides. So one person would make the slide, the presentation, and then everybody would get their own slide to work on. That actually works out really, really well. But you're going to make sure that it's all in one presentation. You're going to add a title slide with the group members' names on the front, at least the ones who did any of the slides, and make sure that all of the slides are pretty consistent. And then the one person is going to be the one person to turn it in under the submission link because only one person can turn in group work in Blackboard Ultra. So if somebody gets all excited and turns it in first without adding everybody else's stuff, that's going to be the group turn in. So be sure that you understand this is group work and you must turn in your work with the rest of the group, and only one person can turn it in, which is why we have this instructions slide here, because only one person can view the instructions at any one time on the submission link, but everyone can view these instructions because they are separate. So only one person can view the submission link at one time. Make sure that the person who is supposed to be turning this in is the one turning it in. You do not, please make sure that there are no links to Google Slides or Canva or PowerPoint. It has to be a downloaded file to Blackboard. It cannot be a link from Canva. If you need help with how to download a link from Canva, please email me and I'll be happy to give you those instructions. But it has to be a downloaded link from Canva or PowerPoint or Google Slides. It cannot be, it can be a downloaded file. It cannot be a link. And I'm also going to see if I can put up some other information about logical fallacies. But the internet, again, is absolutely rife with information about logical fallacies. If I didn't already, let me make sure. Yeah. Oh, here we go. I did put some information about logical fallacies up. It just wasn't showing you guys what it is. So here you go. Here are all of the logical fallacy information that I have. So there you go. Now, also included with your groups is a discussion board for you guys. So here's the instructions. Here is the submission link for the final assignment. Remember, only one person can submit the presentation. But here is a group discussion with the 5 groups. And it will, when you click on it, it's only going to show you your group. This is a place where you can discuss this assignment and where you can uh, exchange files if you need to, or information that only your group can see. So when you click on that, only your group will be able to see it. But it's a great place, and I highly recommend that you get started on this as soon as possible. The due date on this is the 28th, but I may move that to, I may make that later depending on what kind of participation we have, because I do recognize that it's online and we're also in the end of the course and there's a lot going on. So there you go. But that's what we have going on this week. We are starting the argument essay. It's over social media. Um, I'm going to say that the social media summaries is going to be the assignment that counts for attendance this week because it's really the most important one, followed by the teamwork assignment. The chapters are important because it's got a lot of information that you're going to need, but the social media articles is going to count for attendance for the week. There's a lot going on. Please make sure you read through this carefully. Listen to this lecture again if you need to. But that is all we've got going on. I'm happy to answer questions. Should you have them, please be sure to email me. I'm getting your papers back as soon as I possibly can. I know we now have the third paper turned in. I assure you they will be back to you soon. Um, I do want to make sure that everybody understands about the AI policy. Please do not use AI like Grammarly or any other program to proofread your papers. Uh, the amount of time that I have to spend with all of the papers that come up as having AI on them is enormous, and it takes away from the time that I could simply be grading papers for their content and other merits. Um, I'm spending an inordinate amount of time with students who are continuing to use AI on their papers for whatever reason. I honestly don't think that most of you are using AI for generation. I think you're using AI to check your paper before you turn it in. And the problem with that is the paper is then marked for AI, which is why it's specifically verboten for the class. So use the built-in spell checkers and grammar checkers that are built into Microsoft Word or Google Docs because they're not going to pop for AI. Don't use Copilot, don't use Gemini. Those may pop for AI. Use the built-in ones where it highlights the word or underlines the word if it's wrong or if it has grammar issues. Or you can go up and say, please spell check. Um, don't run it through Grammarly. Don't run it through Chegg. Don't run it through literally any of the other AIs because it's just going to pop for AI. And then I have to send it through all kinds of other checks and balances to make sure that it's not been AI generated or AI enhanced because that is expressly against our syllabus. And the reason being is that if you are having your papers corrected by AI, I will not know what it is that you are lacking in, which sounds great for a grade, except that at this point, if it comes up over 20% AI and under 50%, I'm just going to take off 20 points because there should be zero AI. I have many papers that are zero AI, and they're not perfect, and that's okay. I don't take off points because it's not perfect. And I certainly don't take off a point for everything that's not perfect. Um, but I feel very strongly that Grammarly does you a disservice as a student, that it's too easy to click through it and not actually learn what it's trying to tell you. So please, I beg of you, do not use AI. It's not working out very well for those of you who have been. And I spend way too much time with it, and it's very frustrating. And nobody wants a frustrated teacher grading their papers. All right, if you have any questions about any of this, the assignments, the argument essay, or even the use of AI, please email me. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, have a great week and know that next week is truncated. We don't have a full week in our last week. So keep that in mind. So you'll have until next week to turn in revisions, which you will have everything back before next week so that you can do revisions. And the last paper will be due on Wednesday, along with everything else. So there you go. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you later.